Hello everybody, happy Friday, yeah. So I've been doing these on Thursdays, these little mini lessons to teach you how to belly dance in 5 minutes. But today I'm doing it on Friday because my back was a little bit worrisome through this week. But that's okay, we can still dance. If you've got issues with your upper back, this is not gonna hurt it at all. This is all in the lower body, all lower, in the hip area. So tonight's lesson is the interior hip circle. In belly dance circles, this is often called an ami or an ummi, but it's also known as an interior hip circle, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So if you've been following along and you did my first video 3 weeks ago, the basic knee shimmy, then you are ahead of the game already, and you've already got half the move down. So I will start off by explaining what we did. That basic movement was lifting the hips straight up by bending and straightening the knees. So you bend and straighten the knees and you're lifting the hips up. That is half of an interior hip circle. So you're just bending and straightening. So let's go ahead and do that for a little bit. Just bend and straighten the knees, lifting those hips straight up. Everybody got it? Awesome. I know you did. So the next part of the movement is the front part of the interior hip circle. And I'll explain why that's just a front part, because the back is going to put your hips back into neutral. So the front part is a pelvic tuck. So you want to think about pulling the lower abs into the body. So it's a pelvic tuck and you're rolling up and in. So think about just those very lower abs right there. So if you were, for lack of a better way to describe this, if you're going to the bathroom and you had to stop, squeeze, right? So squeeze. So you're going to lift that pelvic into the body. So it's a pelvic tuck. So you want to tighten up that muscle, release, tight and release, tight and release, tight and release, tight and release. So we're going to put those 3 movements and a release into it for a 4-count move. So you're going to start on the hip. You're going to straighten that leg and lift the hip up. Then you're going to release that and tuck the pelvis in. You're going to release that, straighten the other leg, lift the hip up, and release it all. So you don't want to be pushing back. That is not good on the back. If you have low back issues especially, you want to make sure you're not doing that. So you want to lift the hip up, release, tuck the pelvis, release, lift the hip up, release, and hold. So it's hip, tuck, hip, release, hip, tuck, hip, release, hip, tuck, hip, release. I'll show you from the side. Hip, tuck, hip, release. So you notice my pelvis goes into a very neutral position. I'm not pushing back, I'm not rounding anything. You just want to let your spine hang straight. So hip, tuck, hip, release, hip, tuck, hip, release. So let's smooth that out. Hip, tuck, hip, release, hip, tuck, hip, release, and roll it around. So you can think about this movement as if your hips were a bowl of water, and you imagine that big bowl of water, and you've got, you're trying to hold it steady, but the water's just kind of swirling around in there, yeah? Let's put some music on, and let's just go ahead and do that. So remember, it is hip, pelvis, hip, release, hip, pelvis, hip, release, hip, pelvis, hip, release, and smooth it out. And take your time, because I want you to feel the muscles working. Great muscular contraction going on here. You should feel it a little bit in your thighs. You should feel it in your lower abs. Great low ab workout. Again, that is hip, pelvis, hip, release, hip, pelvis, hip, release. Make sure you're releasing and not pushing back. I'll show you from the side. And take your time with it. 3-minute song, so don't wear yourself out. Obviously this can be done faster, but I like for everyone to learn it slow first. So it's hip, pelvis, hip, release, hip, pelvis, hip, release, hip, pelvis, hip, release. If you're a little more advanced and you want to take it up a notch, go ahead and speed it up. Make sure you're keeping your form. If you feel like you're losing any part of it, just slow it down and hip, pelvis, hip, release. Roll it around. Depending on your song and depending on your style, you can also tick this move. It's the same actions. Instead of rolling it around smoothly, you're tick, 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 tick. Hip, pelvis, hip, release. Tick, 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 tick. Hip, pelvis, hip, release. Still an interior hip circle, but it's a broken one. Feel free to smooth it out. Go at a speed that's comfortable for you. If you're having to think about the moves, then slow it down and really feel them out. Hip, pelvis, hip, release. Hip, pelvis, hip, release. Almost there. Keep going. Remember that release is just a release. It's not a push to the back. Awesome. Good job. How did that feel? I hope you guys all enjoyed that, and I hope you're staying safe and happy and healthy. Whether or not you're quarantined in your own home or going to work, either way, just stay safe. Make sure you're social distancing when you're out and wearing a mask because it's just safer that way. And also, if you're interested in doing more belly dance with me, I am doing Tuesday night online beginner classes, and they're only $5 per class. You can drop in, just let me know, and I will send you the link. And I take PayPal and Venmo. Anyway, but I hope you guys have a great evening and a fantastic weekend. The weather out here is going to be beautiful. So, talk to you soon. Bye.